There are places in America built on the weight of people's aspirations. Places where the homes are immaculate, the cars are brand new, and the water is always blue. This is Newport Beach, California. In 1994, it was the definition of the American dream, and the man who lived it was William McLaughlin. William, affectionately called Bill, was a self-made millionaire, a determined healthcare entrepreneur whose success allowed him to enjoy the kind of life most people only read about. His life should have been a blueprint for success, a long, quiet sunset of luxury. But then, late on a crisp December night, that perfect vision was shattered by the sound of gunfire. In a neighborhood where the most dramatic sound was usually the chime of a yacht mast, someone had brought the brutality of the outside world straight to Bill McLaughlin's kitchen. Someone had walked into his home and executed him. And the most chilling detail? The killer hadn't broken in. There was no forced entry. This wasn't a random act. This was personal. So from the very beginning, the hunt for the killer had to start not with a stranger, but with someone Bill trusted. Welcome back to the Silent Files, where real crimes reveal hidden truths. On this channel, we dig into the coldest true crime cases. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single episode. Now, let's get back to the chilling case of William Bill McLaughlin. William Bill McLaughlin was born in 1939, a time and place far removed from the lavish coastal life he would one day command. He was a truly self-made millionaire, a determined healthcare entrepreneur whose success was built on ingenuity, not inheritance. He held a patent on a plasma separation medical device, and the royalties from that invention ensured his fortune. Bill had known the joy of a full family life. He was a devoted father to 3 adult children from his previous marriage. He'd given them a childhood filled with love and opportunity, and he was known as a generous and warm man to his friends and business partners. After his divorce, and with his children grown, Bill, at 55, was simply looking for a new chapter. He was wealthy, successful, and vulnerable. And he was about to find companionship in the most modern and perhaps most dangerous way possible: a personal ad in a singles magazine. Bill answered the ad, and the woman on the other end was Nanette Johnston. Nanette Johnston was only 27 years old, almost 3 decades Bill's junior, a young woman with 2 small children. What did the millionaire see in her? She presented herself as intelligent, well-educated, and ambitious. She even claimed to be a businesswoman with an MBA. But behind the veneer of sophistication lay a history less polished. Nanette was, by all accounts, a woman determined to use her striking looks and charm to climb the social ladder. She had a clear objective in life, and that magazine ad was a direct line to it. The ad's promise was direct: you take care of me, and I'll take care of you. The connection was instantaneous, and the benefits for Nanette were immediate. Within months, Bill had moved Nanette and her children into his $1 million waterfront home. He showered her with gifts, a luxury car, a generous monthly allowance, and a stunning engagement ring. He was besotted, looking forward to a new, glamorous life. For Nanette, the business agreement of the personal ad was fulfilled. She had found a provider. The lifestyle Bill offered was precisely what she had sought, and she was going to secure it. So Bill, wanting to ensure her future, added her as a beneficiary to his life insurance policy. A policy with a potential total payout of up to $2.5 million. It was the ultimate safety net for Nanette and her children, should anything happen to Bill. But for a woman whose ambition outweighed her conscience, it was the ultimate motive. It was a fortune that required just one thing to unlock: Bill's death. Nanette Johnston had 2 lives in Newport Beach. There was the life of the dutiful fiancé to the millionaire Bill McLaughlin, and then there was the secret life. This secret life involved a man named Eric Naposki. Eric was a former linebacker for the New England Patriots and the Indianapolis Colts. He was handsome, imposing, and worked as a bouncer and security guard at a nearby fitness club. When Nanette met him, the deception began immediately. Nanette told Eric that Bill was just a business mentor, a colleague, even an investor in one of her phantom medical inventions. She claimed they lived in the same house, but slept in separate bedrooms. Eric Naposki, blinded by her beauty and charm, believed every word. He saw Nanette as his intelligent, driven girlfriend, and he had plans to marry her. She was a master manipulator. She had Bill believing he had a young, smart woman who adored him. She had Eric believing he was her true love, the one she was building a future with. She was spinning two different realities, and both men were trapped in her web. But the stakes were rising. Nanette wasn't just living a double life. She was draining Bill McLaughlin dry. She had gained access to his bank accounts and had begun systematically stealing from him. In the days leading up to his death, she had escalated her financial crimes, forging checks totaling a staggering $250,000, bringing her total theft to nearly $500,000. Bill was wealthy, but he wasn't a fool. He was on the verge of discovering the vast scale of her embezzlement. It was all about to collapse. The only way out, the only way to cash in and keep her secret lover, was for Bill McLaughlin to disappear forever. She needed an exit strategy, and Eric Naposki, blinded by infatuation and his imposing size, was her perfect, expendable weapon. December 15th, 1994. The day Nanette's perfect world was set to detonate. Bill had just returned from a trip to Las Vegas, finding a note from Nanette. She was at her son's soccer game and would be home late. It was the perfect, built-in alibi. At about 9 p.m., an intruder entered the quiet, darkened house. The method of entry suggested one thing immediately. Bill had let the killer in, or the killer had a key. Nanette, the live-in fiancé, had access to both. Bill McLaughlin was in his kitchen, wearing a bathrobe and making a late-night sandwich when he came face to face with his attacker. A 9mm Beretta was raised. The killer didn't waste time with a robbery or a confrontation. He just opened fire. Bill McLaughlin dropped dead on his kitchen floor. It was a cold, brutal, calculated execution. The killer, presumably Eric Naposki, was efficient and left no trace of himself behind. After the gunshots, the killer slipped out, disappearing back into the quiet night. The first person to find the horrifying scene was Bill's son, Kevin, who ran downstairs after hearing the muffled shots. Kevin, Bill's adult son who lived with him, was upstairs listening to music at the time of the shooting. He immediately tried to call 911. However, he struggled to communicate with the operator because of a severe brain injury he had suffered years earlier after being hit by a drunk driver.
Newport Beach emergency, please fire paramedics. What's the problem there? I can't understand what you're saying. Okay, is your father or your dog? Your father? Okay, we stand an officer there any minute now.
By protocol, Kevin, the only other person in the house, was an initial suspect, but detectives quickly worked to rule him out. They placed paper bags over his hands and performed a gunshot residue test to see if he had fired a weapon. The results confirmed definitively that Kevin did not fire a firearm that night. Later that night, Nanette pulled up to the house. She performed the perfect role, the hysterical fiancée, arriving on cue. She even handed over a handful of receipts to the detectives, proving she was shopping, miles away, at the time of the murder. A flawless alibi, or so she thought. The first detectives on the scene faced a frustrating puzzle. The victim was a multi-millionaire, the neighborhood was secluded, and the evidence was almost non-existent. No useful DNA, no fingerprints. Crucially, the murder weapon was gone. In 1994, detectives didn't have the forensic tools they have now. No CCTV, no cell phone pings. We had a dead millionaire and a handful of spent shell casings. Police, therefore, had to focus on the people closest to Bill. That focus meant scrutinizing Bill's financial affairs and who stood to gain from his death. The case quickly moved from a random robbery to a murder for hire, not in the traditional sense of a paid hitman, but in the legal sense, a killing done for financial gain, orchestrated by someone who stood to profit. And all paths led straight to Nanette Johnston. The lack of forced entry strongly suggested the victim knew his attacker, or that someone he trusted provided access. Bill's family was the first to raise the alarm. They knew about the enormous life insurance policy, and they knew that Nanette had been systematically pilfering his bank accounts. The family realized with sickening clarity that Nanette had been trying to cash in on Bill. To Bill's children, the motive was clear. It was pure, simple greed. But murder requires a killer. And Nanette's seemingly perfect alibi of the soccer game and shopping trip was starting to fray. Detectives began asking a critical question: who was Nanette with that night, and where did the shopping alibi end? The police discovered Nanette's secret. Before the murder, Nanette's soccer game companion was Eric Naposki. The former NFL linebacker was hauled in for questioning. This is where the web of lies Nanette spun began to snag both of them. Eric was tense and defensive. He claimed to detectives that he didn't know she was Bill's girlfriend, insisting Nanette had told him Bill was just a business partner. He repeatedly tried to minimize their intimate relationship, claiming he and Nanette were just friends.
You never suspected that she and Bill McLaughlin shared an intimate relationship?
I never once suspected. I know he's at least 55 or 56 years old. I was 26. So maybe I'm naive, but I don't see it. You know, I don't see that relationship happening.
Naposki repeatedly denied any intimate relationship with Nanette. This was his first mistake. He offered shifting, inconsistent alibis for the critical time of the murder. He claimed that he couldn't have committed the murder because he couldn't have possibly left his job as a bouncer at a club many miles away, driven to Newport Beach to commit a murder, and returned in time. But detectives learned the truth. The club where Naposki worked as a bouncer was not miles away. It was only a few hundred yards from Bill McLaughlin's home. The drive time was plausible. The opportunity existed. Detectives were convinced they had their killers: Nanette, the mastermind driven by greed, and Eric, the man driven by infatuation. But conviction requires evidence, not just motive. They had no weapon, no eyewitness, and the alibis, though shaky, could not be definitively disproven.
I figured if you have an alibi, then how could you commit a crime? I've been arrested on a murder charge that says I walked into someone's home and shot them at a close range distance with a handgun. And what I'm saying is, show me one thing at the crime scene that has anything to do with me. If I was never there, and if I was never in the house, ever, how did I commit a crime?
The trail went cold. But in 1996, Nanette Johnston faced the music for her financial crimes. She pleaded guilty to forgery and theft for the $500,000 she stole from Bill. She was sentenced to a mere 1 year in jail, serving only 180 days. The murder of William McLaughlin remained unsolved, and Nanette Johnston was free. She was able to walk away, having served less than a year for the theft, and having completely escaped accountability for the murder. For 15 long years, the McLaughlin family waited, and for 15 years, the two prime suspects lived their lives. Eric Naposki, maintaining his innocence, moved across the country to Connecticut, settling down, getting married, and starting a new life far from the California coastline. Nanette's life, however, was a masterclass in forgetting. She went right back to doing what she did best, dating wealthy men. She married a wealthy businessman, becoming Nanette Packard. Then, after that marriage ended, she married another rich man, becoming Nanette McNeil. She was living the opulent lifestyle of an Orange County socialite, raising children, driving expensive cars, and attending lavish functions. To anyone who didn't know her past, she was just another beautiful, successful California housewife. She had more children. She just erased Bill McLaughlin from her history. She believed she had gotten away with it. While Nanette built her life of luxury, the memory of Bill McLaughlin and the promise of justice faded from the public eye. But not from the eyes of Bill's daughters, who relentlessly pursued the truth, or the cold case file that sat on a shelf in the Newport Beach Police Department. A case that demanded answers. A case that had never truly been about finding the killer, but proving it. And in 2008, a new team decided to try again. The case of Bill McLaughlin's murder was 15 years cold when a new generation of investigators and prosecutors decided to thaw it out. They went back to the original interview tapes, countless hours of testimony, and focused relentlessly on the inconsistencies in Eric Naposki's statements. The biggest red flag was the weapon, a 9mm Beretta, a crucial, unreleased detail. In his initial interview, Eric Naposki volunteered information about a 9mm Beretta he claimed to have owned, but had lost months before the murder. Other witnesses later placed him in possession of that gun far closer to the date of the crime. Why would an innocent person lie about owning the specific caliber weapon that killed the victim, a caliber that no one outside of the investigation knew about? He was tying himself to the murder without even realizing it. His denials were, in fact, devastatingly powerful admissions of guilt. The modern investigation was able to meticulously retrace the route from Naposki's workplace to the murder scene, definitively proving he had the window of time to commit the execution and return to his bouncer job. The alibi that had kept him free for 15 years was demolished. The meticulous work of following up on decades-old phone records and witness statements paid off. The stage was set. In 2009, the Orange County authorities filed murder charges against both Nanette Johnston and Eric Naposki. 15 years after the murder, the hammer finally dropped. Eric Naposki was arrested at his home in Connecticut. Days later, Nanette Johnston was arrested in California. The millionaire's murder, once frozen, was now the subject of intense media scrutiny and a high-profile court battle. The prosecution, unable to seat both defendants together due to trial complexity, opted for separate trials. Eric Naposki went first in 2011. The prosecution's theory was stark and simple. Nanette, fearing exposure for the theft, gave Naposki a key, or used her influence to orchestrate the killing to secure the financial payout and cover up her $500,000 theft. Naposki's defense argued that Nanette was the sole instigator, a black widow who manipulated him, and that the financial gain motive belonged only to her. The defense for Nanette, whose trial began in 2012, tried to flip the script, arguing that Naposki, the jealous, impulsive former athlete, killed Bill on his own out of rage and to keep Nanette from returning to her wealthy fiancé. It was a conspiracy for financial gain. Nanette didn't have the heart to pull the trigger, but she had the brains to plan it. Eric didn't have the motive, but he had the means and the infatuation to commit the crime for her. They were partners in murder, and the jury recognized that they were equally responsible. In July 2011, after a long trial, the jury delivered its verdict for Eric Naposki, guilty of first-degree murder, with the special circumstance of committing the murder for financial gain and personally discharging a firearm. The verdict confirmed his role as the hired executioner. 6 months later, in January 2012, it was Nanette Johnston's turn. The jury, after just 3 hours of deliberation, found her guilty of first-degree murder and the special circumstance for financial gain. The deadly gold digger was exposed as the mastermind. Justice for William McLaughlin was finally achieved. His family, after nearly 2 decades of waiting, had their closure. His daughter, Kim McLaughlin, told reporters, "We're very grateful. This is 2 down." In separate sentencing hearings at the Orange County Central Justice Center in Santa Ana, California, both Eric Naposki and Nanette Johnston were given the maximum sentence available: life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Nanette, who was convicted of first-degree murder in January 2012 and sentenced in May 2012, saw her glamorous life in sun-drenched Orange County replaced by a prison cell. Naposki, who was convicted in July 2011 and sentenced on August 10, 2012, and still maintains his innocence today, also received a life sentence. Nanette Johnston sought to control everything: the men she loved, the wealth they possessed, and the reality she constructed. She believed that 15 years of luxury and secrecy meant she had won. But in the end, her perfect crime was undone by a simple fact: there is no such thing as a perfect lie. The motive was money, the method was murder, and the cost was freedom. A tale of fatal ambition in the heart of Orange County. This concludes the tragic case of William Bill McLaughlin. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this case. And if you enjoy true crime cases like these, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell so you never miss an episode. Thanks for watching this episode of The Silent Files, where real crimes reveal hidden truths.